Hello super friends and welcome to DC TV Talk. This is the show where we talk all things Supergirl, The Flash, Legends of Tomorrow, Arrow and Black Lightning. And in today's video I'm going to be reviewing the entire season of Arrow Season 6, so let's discuss. Now, I was very excited going into this season given how amazing Season 5 was and how incredibly jaw-dropping that finale was, and going into Season 6 it was safe to say that it was probably my most hyped of the Arrowverse shows, maybe alongside Flash this season, so I had high expectations. But the season didn't exactly start off on the best foot when we see the fallout from the Lian-Yu explosion. The only fallout from it was that Samantha Clayton, the mother of William, who is the mother of obviously Oliver's son, was the only casualty of Lian-Yu, having Thea also being badly hurt but only being in a coma, whereas Samantha being the only one who was killed. This was a very underwhelming thing, and also it was something we all knew was there, because if you look at the trailers, William was with Oliver, living with Oliver, so why would he be living with Oliver if Samantha was still alive? It made no sense, it was just so predictable, and the fact that it was the only death we got just made that entire Season 5 finale feel a bit cheap. Speaking of William, he was really bad this season. I mean, he really got a lot of scenes here, especially with Stephen Amell, and he was really quite bad. I'm sorry, Jack Moore, but you're just not a good actor, buddy. I'm sorry, but you're not. Maybe come back in a couple years, but all of his scenes were just lacking of energy, lacking of any kind of emotion. He was just so deadpan, and it really doesn't work when, he's going through some quite emotional stuff with his father, Oliver, so it didn't quite work. And there are so many scenes where Stephen's trying to act the hell out of it, and he can't because he's not getting the response from Jack Moore that he needs. This was very apparent in episode 21. But overall, I really didn't like him. And then this season was all about family. That was kind of like the theme of this season. And we also had Olicity back this season, which was obviously the Oliver and Felicity relationship. They actually got married, of course, in episode 8 at the end of the crossover. And Olicity was not as bad as a lot of us anticipated. They didn't focus on it like they did in Season 4. It didn't grind down the show to a halt. It's still not the best. I still don't love it. It's not great. But it wasn't as bad as it was in Season 4. It was a bit more sidelined, and considering that they're now married, we don't have to go through that relationship drama as much anymore. I still could do without, but, what can I do? Given the fact that we've got it, it wasn't too bad. Now, episode 5 and 6 were absolutely incredible of this season. That was the Deathstroke two-parter we were promised. This is where Oliver goes and helps Slade find his son, Joe Wilson, who is out there running the Jackals, who are like this mercenary unit. And they were really cool. I really loved these two episodes. We got some incredible action. It was all about Slade, and that was great. We got some awesome flashbacks with Slade and his son, which was really awesome. I really liked the actor who played Joe. I thought he was really cool. They kind of hint at the fact that maybe he could come back and maybe come back as Jericho. That would be really awesome. And I loved these Deathstroke two parts, especially the fight scene, I think, in episode 5, where Deathstroke just storms that facility is badass. Probably one of the best action sequences of the season. So awesome. And just these two episodes were just what we needed, because obviously we haven't had Deathstroke really on the show for a long time properly since Season 2, so it was really nice to have him come back for these two episodes. And even though we can't really use Deathstroke on the show anymore, this was kind of a nice way to kind of end off his story, even though I'm sure he will pop up again at some point. Now let's talk about the other characters in the show, such as Team Arrow, especially Diggle, who Diggle took up the mantle of the Green Arrow this season for a little while, for episode 3 till episode 7, and this was something I didn't see coming. I didn't see Diggle becoming the Green Arrow a thing, and this leads to some greater conflict later on, where Diggle basically got the right to be the Green Arrow taken away from him after he was injured, and he just kind of never got it given back, even though he really loved being the Green Arrow and he wanted to continue being the Green Arrow. But Oliver took it and then never kind of gave it back because he enjoys being the Green Arrow. And this made Diggle an incredibly salty character this season. And they kind of ruined Diggle at a lot of points, especially episode 17, where that was the big Oliver-Diggle fight episode. That was really harming to Diggle's character and quite harming to David Ramsey, because it was quite insulting to David Ramsey and also insulting to the character of Diggle to turn him like that, because it was so out of character. And Diggle has been very out of character this season, which has been a shame, because Diggle is one of the best characters on this show, and although he kind of is fixed by the end and it's all resolved, I still don't quite know what they're going to do with him going forward. But I did enjoy Diggle as the Green Arrow. I thought he was interesting, and I feel we might be getting a bit more of that in Season 7, so it's going to be cool. If you liked it in this season, then I guess you can prepare yourselves. had a massive conflict this season where Team Arrow was split down the middle after Renee ratted them all out to the FBI, and this was a big thing this season, was the split. We had original Team Arrow, which was Oliver, Diggle, and Felicity, and then new Team Arrow, which was Renee, Curtis, and Dinah. And this was a real weak point of the season, having the teams split, having two separate Arrow teams just working on different things, kind of working towards the same goal but not really communicating with each other that well. They were just constantly having these petty arguments, and then it all culminated really in episode 14 where they had this massive fight, like a massive civil war, and it was really annoying. And even like in episode 12, like in terms of like them ruining characters, they ruined Dinah this season, because I loved Dinah in season 5 and I loved her at the start of this season, but as soon as this whole thing with Black Siren started and her killing, Vince, that was really grinded down her character and made her really annoying and just completely unjustifiable. And Renee, although they kind of redeemed Renee by the end, well, actually, I would say they redeemed Renee by the end, he still became the annoying, whiny character that he was when we first met him. And I thought we've been through this arc. We don't need to do this again. We've done it. That was what season 5's story was about for Renee. But again, they kind of went through it again, and it was really annoying. I really didn't enjoy this Team Arrow split, and it's a shame because I was really starting to like these new recruits come the end of season 5 and coming into season 6. I was really starting to like them, and then they just kind of put them back to square one. So it was really irritating, the fact they had to go through the storyline again. And I still feel like obviously there is still a divide there, but hopefully it's going to get resolved a little bit better. So let's talk about the villains of this season. The villains were another big issue for the season. We got the first half of the season with Caden James, who was set up in season 5 as the leader of the big hacker group Helix. And he wanted to kill Oliver and the Green Arrow because he believed that the Green Arrow was responsible for killing his son. Which, yeah, fair enough, that's a fair enough motivation. But Caden James, oh my god, what a boring villain. This guy, I mean, nothing against Michael Emerson, he's great, but just the character itself is so boring. He just didn't feel like a threat to the Green Arrow. He just didn't feel like a threat to Star City. I think, like, hacking is such a weak point on Arrow. Like, every time they do hacking, it's so just unbelievable. So when we had a major, big bad being a hacker, it just really dragged down the show, and it really made it feel like a slog. Caden James was just not an entertaining villain at all, and when he died, it was so good. Now, he did have his criminal cabal, which was quite interesting. I quite enjoyed, this kind of team of villains. But considering how they said, oh, each member of Team Arrow is going to have their own villain, they didn't quite follow through with that. So the cabal kind of feel a bit wasted. Especially when we had, like, some people, like, obviously we had Anatoly on there, we had Vigilante on there, and the whole thing with Vigilante was awful. Like, the Vigilante reveal, considering how well they built it up and considering how well they hid the identity of the Vigilante, the reveal of who it was so underwhelming, it just made no sense at all. And especially because they recast the actor, so when he took the helmet off, we didn't even know who it was anyway, so it made no sense. And even the character who it actually was, we only ever seen in one episode before. And this is kind of, without Vigilante, we probably wouldn't have ever got this whole Dinah going off and going after Black Siren storyline. So annoying. But besides all that, within the Cabal, we did get introduced to another villain who ended up being the main of the season. So after a lot of fan speculation, we did all predict that Ricardo Diaz is going to be the main villain of the season, and he was. At the end of episode 13, he killed Caden James and took over the city. He was able to corrupt all of Star City. He had all the city officials, he had all the police force, the law enforcement. He had them all under his thumb. And Ricardo Diaz was a pretty good villain. I don't think he's the best villain in Arrow, not even close really, but I still really enjoyed him. Kirk Acevedo was so good in the role. He was just having so much fun, and you can tell he's so passionate about this role too. The only problem with Ricardo Diaz is that I didn't quite buy him. I think that he, was just a thug. He was just a street thug, and how he was able to accomplish all this, I don't quite know. And even though he's still alive, he survived the end of the season, he's probably going to be in next season and still going to be a major villain next season. Hopefully we'll get some more development that turns him a bit more into the typical Richard Dragon type character, because that's what we need, because this is the Arrowverse version of Richard Dragon, so hopefully we'll get more of that in season 7. I liked Ricardo Diaz a lot. He was a lot better than Caden James. He just wasn't the best, and I feel like he did have a lot of weak points that held him back a little bit. Now, this whole storyline with the FBI was really annoying, because the FBI, every time that Oliver is under indictment from the law for being the Green Arrow. Like, it's happened like 3 times already, so it's just, when it happens again, it's just like, oh, here we go again. But at least this time they followed through with it. Obviously, given the finale, Oliver is now in jail for being the Green Arrow, so that was a good thing, I guess. But like, the leader of the FBI, Samandra Watson, was really annoying. She wasn't too bad in the finale when she came back, but especially in the first few episodes she was in, not great. And just this whole storyline, it was just, you know, we've seen it all before. However, there was a really good storyline between Quentin Lance and Black Siren. Obviously, Black Siren being Earth 2 Laurel Lance. That was a really good storyline. Having, you know, Laurel kind of working under Caden James, then working under Ricardo Diaz. She kind of went through this amazing storyline where she was talking about how she's always been under the control of males. So, you know, she started off under the control of Hunter Zolomon on The Flash Season 2. Then, of course, Adrian Chase in Arrow Season 5. Then Caden James, now Ricardo Diaz. And it was just quite sad because you could see how much Quentin cared about Laurel, and you could see how much he wanted to protect her. And it was really nice. Their storyline and their dynamic is one of the shining spots of this season. It was really sweet and just nice to see Quentin kind of having his daughter back in his life in a way, and trying to protect her, trying to keep her from making the wrong decisions, and trying to turn her back into, you know, his Laurel, and trying to turn her into the woman that he knew. And it was just a really great storyline. I think this is one of the best parts of the season. I don't think this storyline gets enough love and attention because it's really great, and I really enjoyed it. And the fact it all culminates with Quentin's death, which is one of the saddest deaths in the Arrowverse, possibly the saddest death, it was just a perfect culmination. And it's sad to see Paul Blackthorne leave the show, but I guess everyone has to go at some point, and this was Quentin's turn, and it was certainly an impactful death, and it worked really, really well. Also, that finale was incredible. Not only did we get Quentin's death, but just in terms of all the action sequences, everything with Ricardo Diaz, everything with all the reconciliations of Team Arrow and New Team Arrow. Black Siren was great, just in terms of the FBI. And of course the ending, Oliver was arrested for being the Green Arrow. Oliver is now in prison. It was just an amazing finale. It wasn't quite the season 5 finale. I mean, that's still my favorite episode of Arrow probably ever, but I still love the season 6 finale. It was a very different kind of finale. Has a lot of emotional weight to it. It's game changing for Arrow. Like, Arrow has changed now because of this finale, and I love it because it really just adds kind of like this fog vision, because we don't know where we're going. Like, I don't know where they're going to take this show in season 7, and I think that's exciting, and that's perfectly down to this incredible finale. It was amazing. Overall, Arrow season 6 was probably just an average season of Arrow. I mean, I really enjoyed it, but in terms of my personal ranking of Arrow, it goes smack in the middle. It's better than 4, it's better than 3, but it's not as good as 5, 1, or 2. It's just a perfectly kind of middle-of-the-road average season of Arrow. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was great. There was some really standout episodes, especially in the back end. Like, from episode 18 to 23, it was amazing. Like, that back few episodes, those last 5. And then we have, like, other standout episodes, like 5 and 6, which were the Deathstroke 2-parter. Episode 15, where they brought back my boy Roy Harper. Episode 18, where they brought back Prometheus, who's just amazing. Episode 21, which was the court case episode, was amazing. Has some of the best writing in the history of Arrow, in my opinion. And then the finale was, like I said, mind-blowing. I think that this season of Arrow had a lot of shortcomings, especially in terms of its themes and in terms of its villains. But overall, I think that this season was pretty good on the whole, and it was a good follow-up. And given, I feel like this season is mostly set up for season 7, and if season 7 can pull it off, then it will make this season feel a lot better when we look back in retrospect. So if that's what this season's trying to do, then it just has to hope that season 7 can pull it off. But overall, I enjoyed season 6 a lot. I thought it was a good season of Arrow, and I did enjoy everything it had to offer. So thank you guys for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please give it a like. It'll help me out a lot. And share this video with anyone and everyone you know who loves DC TV, and get them to join the community. And as always, guys, please subscribe for all of your latest content on Supergirl, The Flash, Legends of Tomorrow, Arrow, and Black Lightning. And with all that said, guys, I hope to see you again in my next video.